Hey guys, welcome back to the shack, and many of you have asked for this video. I've been kind of putting it off because I didn't have any orders to fulfill, but this last few weeks I've had an order come in, had to order the stuff to do it with, and tonight I'm going to show you how to take a Amazon hat and some Amazon leather, and we're going to make some really cool hats with leather patches. These are for a friend of mine who's got his own farm, and I've done an order already of, I think it was 6 hats, and at some of the recent family gatherings, the hats were spotted by some of the other family members, and they've requested hats, and so he's placed another order. So I've got the raw materials here, and I'll be putting the link in the description down below so that if you want to try to recreate this entirely, you can. The one other piece of equipment you're going to need is going to be the sewing kit, and you'll see that later in the video, but I'll put all the links down below if it's something you're interested in and you can try it. Now, before we get started, guys, for all of you pros out there, this is the way I do it, okay? I'm not a master seamstress, okay? The way I sew them on there, it works for me. They hold. I wear the hats that I make, and so far, it's held up. So you can do it other ways there if you want to be proper and do proper stitching and all that. Okay, whatever, that's cool. But this is the way I do them. It works for me. If you want to use this way, feel free to copy what I'm doing, and you can make your own hats. But stick around for the end of the video, and you'll see if it's something that you might be interested in. All right, guys, for this operation, we're going to be using the 20-watt X tool. Primary reason is because this enclosure does the best job of extracting the air of any of my enclosures. This is my vacuum table. It has a vacuum shop vac on the outside of the building. That's what I use to suck the air out of it and expel it outside. And it smells. Do not do this in your house unless you have a good ventilation setup. And by good, I mean a really good ventilation setup. If you choose to do it inside your house without proper ventilation, I told you so. So when you get this stuff out of the bag, it's just going to come in a roll like this. Not crazy about it being rolled like this because it does cause problems. There are some issues that arise from it being rolled up, and you'll see that here shortly. It is also going to make you very thankful that you have a honeycomb, and it's going to make you very thankful that magnets exist, because if you lay this stuff in here like that, it's just going to try to roll back up. So I'm going to break out, and these are, you won't find these anywhere, guys. These are my own little special recipe, special design. These are only available at the Clack Shack. And these are my leather retainers. All right, they work with the honeycomb. I use some of those high-speed dowels. Y'all are familiar with, I use high-speed dowels for a lot of things. So these guys here work really well for holding your leather down too. And the way it works, of course, is the little comb part goes into the honeycomb to hold it still. This little piece right here hooks over the edge of the leather, and this little leg just kind of lays out the back of the honeycomb and kind of provides it a little bit of support in the event that it tries to move. So I'm going to move my roll here. I'm not going to cut this roll. I could cut this roll and make it a little better because it would be, you know, wouldn't have this big chunk of material over here. And don't worry, guys, I'll show you what I'm doing in just a minute before we get through, but I got to have the camera out of my way for the moment. But I'm going to put my little brackets over here and hook this leather up, because I'm going to tell you guys, leather is one of those materials that will drive you crazy. It'll make you want to get rid of your laser, because if you mess up a sheet of leather, that's a costly mistake. And I have been there and done that. Like I said, if you're not tearing stuff up, guys, you're not really doing much with lasers. Once you get your material secured, and you want to make sure it's secured really well, then you can go ahead and start cutting out your patches. Now, I, on occasion, will run multiple patches on one cut, but let me go ahead and tell you guys, the safest way of doing it, because this stuff does tend to curl sometimes, the safest way of doing it is to do one patch at a time. That way you can fasten your material back down. You can trim your material if needed, whatever the case may be, to try to keep any problems from arising. And you will have problems. It's leather. It always causes trouble. All right, guys, I've got my logo or my patch loaded. This patch file is one of the ones that I make, and I've got a few of them on my Etsy store in the event that you don't want to take the time to make your own. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna send that out to frame and just make sure that everything stays clear. Make sure I don't encounter anything that I don't want to encounter. I strongly recommend, and some of you guys are gonna jump up and down and say I'm wasting leather, and I understand that I'm not gonna be able to use every square inch of this leather. But the closer you get to the edge of this stuff, guys, the worse it's gonna curl and the more risk you're gonna have of something going wrong. So yes, I'm gonna be wasting probably a 3/4 inch strip of leather right here because I wanna make sure it stays down. That's just a sacrifice I'm gonna have to make. For this cut, I will be running my air assist. I'm gonna be running my air assist not fully involved, but just enough to keep the fumes and stuff from coming up in my nozzle. And also it helps with the depth of the engrave on leather because there is a lot of dust and stuff that's going to come off of this. And when the laser goes by that first pass, because I'm running this at 254 LPI, so when it goes across that first pass, the air is going to kind of blow that dust away from the next path that it's going to make. And so I find that I get clearer, better looking, darker images without having to run multiple passes by running a little bit of air. This is a 20-watt module, and I will be running it at 110 millimeters per second, 100% output for the feel. I do have a line that is going to be drawn in there that is basically just a perimeter line that kind of simulates where the thread is going to be and just adds a little character. My cut, I'm running at 7 millimeters per second. I'm going to be running that at 3 passes because I do know that leather can be hard to cut. So I want to, especially on my little holes where my thread goes, I want to make sure those guys fall out easily, because if they don't, it can ruin this entire patch. So that's the reason I'm going that many passes. 3 passes may seem excessive, and it is, guys, but I don't want any of those little pieces staying in there. I want them all to fall out when I pick that thing up. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna preview this burn, just to give you an idea. This burn is gonna take 7 minutes and 5 seconds to complete. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the lid here if I can do it without hitting the camera. All right, here we go, guys. I've got my fill layer up top. The next layer is gonna be my line. The last layer is gonna be the cut. And you always wanna do that, especially with leather. Like I said, leather will curl. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't end up demonstrating that here in just a second and have a problem with this, but we'll see. All right, I'm gonna turn the air and the vacuum off, and there's my patch, guys. Like I said, I did 3 passes because I wanted to make absolutely sure, especially these little tiny holes right here. You can see those little holes. I don't want any of those little guys not being able to just knock them out. The one thing that I will say, if you don't have shish kebab sticks, they're really good for, if you do have one of these little guys trying to hang on, they're really good for being able to just kind of poke them out of there. Because occasionally you will have like a little fiber holding, and you want to knock those out of there before you go to try to sew it on. But let me hit this with an air hose before we do much with it, because I don't want to get that soot everywhere. Now, I want to show you on the kind of wiping it up and cleaning it up. Typically, this leather is going to be some type of oil tanned. So if you'll just get yourself a dry piece of t-shirt or like a dry cloth, you don't want to put anything wet on there. I'll avoid using any kind of acetone or alcohol or anything like that, because there are oils that are placed in the leather to keep it moist and keep it flexible. And if you take that out, then it can dry crack and stuff like that. So a lot of times, I'm gonna be honest with you, unless you've got somebody that really, really wants this thing to look pristine, which if they want it to look pristine, they might need to go get a material that is not, animal byproduct. So, but just with a little bit of wiping from the rag, there's the patch. You could even take a leather cleaner and clean it, but be careful with any kind of paste or anything like that, because if you use like saddle soap, which is a paste, it'll get down in here and it'll just make it look nasty. So if you're gonna clean it with anything, I would recommend maybe like an oil of some type, like maybe a mink oil, if you can get oil, but like I said, stay away from the pastes. But for this application, the look that they were going for is farming, you know, cows in the field. A little bit of discoloration just adds character, and a lot of my folks, if I make these things look too good, they don't like it. So I'm not giving them a peel and stick piece of upholstery adhesive. I mean, they're getting genuine cow leather. So they expect it not to be exactly perfect. Nothing made by animals is going to be symmetrical all the way as far as the colors and tones and stuff like that. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the remaining part of the process to be able to get this thing onto the hat, because that's a part that a lot of people ask me about. Like I said, guys, I am not a leather worker. This is not necessarily the best way to do it. It's how I do it, and if you want to know how I do it, just stick around. You're going to need a patch. Going to need a hat. These are the Richardson 112s. I don't normally do these out here in the shop because it is dusty, but I've cleaned my table, blew it off with the air hose, so hopefully I won't get my hats too dirty. But these are Richardson 112s. I buy them off of Amazon, and there are places that you can buy these things, get them a lot cheaper, and if I were doing hundreds of them, I probably would. But these I just kind of do on a, you know, request basis from time to time. I'm not really trying to push these things heavy, because for the labor it takes me to do these, I'm not making a whole lot of money off of them. So I'd rather stick to other stuff. But this guy, like I said, he is a friend, so I'll be doing the hats. Open it up. You're gonna want to get this guy out of there. do not sew that into the hat. That is not part of the hat. So get rid of that. All right, a friend of mine who does hats for a living has told me that you should bring your patch up 1/2 inch off of the seam for the brim here. And that seems like a pretty good number. It looks pretty good. She does embroidered hats at a business, so you know, I'm gonna take her word for it. Now, getting this guy lined up can be challenging, guys. If you're not good with visually lining things up, this is gonna drive you nuts. And if you're OCD like me, you're gonna be sitting here second guessing yourself the entire time. But I've done a lot of these, and so far they've all turned out well. Typically with these patches, you can see where the crest of that circle is, and that little hole right there, along with the little hole that corresponds to it in the bottom, are the centers. So it makes it a little easier. You can kind of cheat with that. As long as you line those two up with the seam in the middle of the hat, everything should be good. So here we go. Let me show you the next step. This is my little sewing kit that I got, and don't make fun of it, guys. It was on Amazon. I bought it when I had never done a hat before, and I didn't know exactly what I was going to use or what I needed, so I just bought the whole shooting match. This is the glue that I use. There may be better glues out there, guys. Like I said, I'm not telling you that this is the only way to do it. This is how I do it. Now, I like to shake this stuff up really well, because it can kind of be a little frustrating sometimes, because it wants to turn into water if it sits up too long. So make sure you shake this stuff up, in my opinion. And what I do is I turn my little patch right here, turn that guy over, and move everything out of the way. And I'm going to put a good coat of this little cement here on the back of the patch. I know I'm sewing it on, but guys, when you're sewing these things on, it's a little bit tough. Like I said, I don't have a machine. I do this by hand, and so I have found that this is my best approach, is to put me some of this little cement here on the back of the patch, a nice, you know, thick coat, so that it'll bond to the hat itself. All right, and this stuff will kind of soak into the hat, so you kind of gotta put it on there a little thick. From my experience, like I said, guys, my way, not the only way. So I get that on there. I don't get too close to the edge, and one reason I don't get too close to the edge is because if you do have to slide it to slightly correct, if you put the glue all the way out to the edge here and you slide it, you're going to uncover the glue. So I leave that for my stitches to hold. And then I have came up with this crazy way of holding the hat and the patch, and just kind of stick this guy up here using both my hands and my pinkies, because it's kind of probably needs to be a two-man operation. But just try to get that guy lined up, and it'll start sticking. Like as soon as you put it on there, this cement is like, it's almost like it knows it's supposed to start hardening up, and it'll start curing. You're gonna want to make sure you ain't got any creases or anything like that in the leather, because like I said, once this stuff gets on there good, it doesn't come off really easy. I've had to take one off one time before, and you will actually leave leather on the hat. I just kind of press it with my hands. I've been threatening to get me a block of wood and make me a hat press out of 2 blocks of wood, but I haven't done it because, like I said, this is not something I do a lot of. This is just one of those things that I get orders from time to time, and I'll knock out a few of them. But they're definitely authentic, handmade, as you can see. And my OCD messes with me. I had like half of the hole wasn't quite lined up, so I had to go ahead and do that little twist before it gets set. But I'm just gonna let it set for a few minutes and let this glue kind of cure. That's what it looks like so far. And once the glue has had a chance to bond and cure a little bit, I'll go back and show you how I go about putting the holes in there for the thread. But in the meanwhile, I'm gonna burn some more patches. This material, I think it's safe to say that this material is gonna cut in 2 passes, but I'm still a little leery that it may have a little bit of a harder spot or a thicker spot, because when you buy leather, it'll tell you between this thickness and this thickness. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to leave it at 3 passes. It's not going to hurt anything with the little holes, and I am going to be here to watch it, and I can stop it if it starts looking like it's going to curl. Like I said, this is why I recommend doing them one at a time. All right, guys, we're going to go for the over-the-shoulder view on this if I can there, so maybe you can see what I'm doing. It's been a few minutes, so the glue should be tacky enough that this thing isn't going to move real easily. So I'm going to go ahead and start punching some holes through here. I tried the first few hats I did. I tried using just a needle, and I had no success at that. All that it really did was it tried to pierce my hand. So this little kit here, it comes with a lot of different little tools, and this little awl here, it's actually made for like scratching. This one's more of the, where you can punch the string through with it. But personal preference here, guys, so any of y'all that are professionals at this, don't knock me, but I use this guy to make my holes, and then I use these twisted hooks looking needles here to pull the thread through, and that just works better for me. I have better luck that way. So what I do is I start with this guy right here. Generally, I try to start in the seam in the middle right here. That's going to be one of the hardest places that you're going to have to try to punch a hole. And I just kind of use my finger here to keep from, sending it all the way home, because you don't want to go all the way out to here because it will stretch these holes. But once you get that thing, you just put a little pressure. Watch your fingers on the back side. All you really want to do is you want to have just enough where you can see the little barb coming through on the other side. Once you do that, you're good. For these hats, I'm going to go ahead and go with I don't know what color would look best here. I think I'm just going to go with black, because this is a blue hat with white. This isn't going to match. I don't remember what I did on the last ones, so we're just going to go with black. And this is the wax coated string that come with this kit. I haven't had to buy any more. I do use different colors depending on the hat. Sometimes I'll use a lighter color if it's a lighter colored hat. This is the part that I'm terrible at, and that is getting the thread through there. Look, I said that, and I got it the first shot. What's the chances of that happening? So once I get the thread on there, I don't tie a knot or anything in this stuff. All I do is I make me a little, I take and have me a little slack right there, just enough to where as I pull it through, it keeps this from coming off. All right, I don't really have a need to tie the knot, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you got plenty of string to go all the way around this thing, because you don't want a seam in the middle. And if you're like me, sometimes you're a little wasteful, but I'd rather be a little wasteful than to have to redo it. It comes with these cool little scissors. Just cut my string, and we're off to the races. Now, you're going to need to start from the back. So wherever this little hole is that you punched, you're going to want to come in from there with this hook. with this needle. And all you're doing is coming in from the back through there and coming out through the hole. So I'm gonna try to do this without looking over toward the camera because it's making me miss. And sometimes it's a little pain. So let me make that hole a little bit bigger. I didn't quite get that one big enough. The leather does have a little stretch to it, so as long as you don't go too far, too deep in there, I haven't messed up any holes so far. And once you get it the right size, it just comes out. The reason I like these is because for me, I have my hands, it's easier for me to grab this needle and pull this rounded needle out than it is trying to hang on to one that's straight. Now, once I get that through there, I am going to tie me a knot in the other end because this is going to be where I started from. For all you Boy Scouts out there, I prefer to just tie a little figure 8 in the end here. And once I get the hat completely done, I'll end up back at this location, and then I'll take a cigarette lighter or something and burn that and just kind of stick it to the underside of where the padding is on the hat. That kind of hides it, gets it out of the way, and allows me to burn it to keep it from coming loose. So I'm just going to pull that all the way out until it catches. And then, guys, this is a very repetitive process. You just start, pick a direction. To me, it doesn't matter. I always go to the right and up and around. But pick a direction and just go to the next hole in the hat, in the patch. Because that's why I like doing the pre-drilled holes, is you just go to the next hole. And for some reason, while I'm trying to video this, I am not pressing my holes deep enough. Seems like when you're on camera, you forget what you're doing sometimes. But you get that little needle in there, reach in from the inside, and it's a painful, slow process, guys. That's why I don't do a lot of these. But this is the way I like to do them. Now, my wife does help me out. She's faster and better at this than I am. So a lot of times she ends up putting the patches on after I made them for her. But she didn't want to do this video, so you guys got to look at me instead. Or at least my hands. And then just like I said, it's kind of like wash, rinse, and repeat, guys, all the way around. Just out one hole, in the other. Out one hole, in the other. Now, if you want to cheat and make things a little smoother, I like to go ahead and just go around and knock me out 3 or 4 holes. Just go ahead and press them in. And I usually stop at like a corner or something, so I'll know when I get to that corner, I can stop from there. And if you're like me and borderline have carpal tunnel, it makes your fingers go numb. So holding on to this little tiny stuff just really messes with my hands. Years of too much work. You flip it over, you can see right there, guys. When you flip it over, you can kind of see the little holes that you punched. And you just come out of that one, go to the next hole, and go in that one. All right. And like I said, rinse and repeat. Over and over and over. Don't skip any holes. I have done that, and it's a pain to get the thread back out. And like I said, this is, once you've done a few, you get a little faster, and if you're not trying to talk to a camera, you're even faster. It is true, the camera slows you down. Because I had gotten where I was pretty proficient at doing these when I got slammed for a while there and had to do a bunch of them. But it's just out and in, out and in. And I'm not going to bore you with watching me do this entire hat. We'll move back over to the machine, and I'll show you that part, because this part's pretty self-explanatory, guys. No fancy knots, no fancy stitches. I go in one hole and out the other. I have my holes pre-drilled because I cut them with a laser. I've even got this neat little line right there that just kind of adds a little accent to it before you put the thread on. So if you want to do a single, like if you just want to go around it one time and do a single and leave those empty, it almost looks like there's thread in those other holes, even though there isn't. So personal preference for you, if you want to go around twice, it looks cool. if you don't feel like doing it, or if it's your hat and you just don't want to, then you don't got it. It looks good either way. I have not had any of them come off, whether I did 2 passes and filled in every little blank, or if I did 1. It doesn't seem to matter. They stay regardless. So I went ahead and run that line there, got all those holes punched. So now I've got to go in from the back, because if you don't see your thread coming out of the front of the hat, guys, remember to flip it over. And you can see my little, hang on, let me make sure you can see it. You can see my little holes there, I think. And I'm just going in these holes. And those holes, because I punched them from the front, are perfectly lined up with my holes in the patch. And you can get on a pretty good roll with this. If you're ambidextrous, it works well. If you can actually function with your left hand, sometimes it's easier to use your left hand. And luckily, I am capable of doing a lot of the work that I do with either. I can't write with my left hand, but I can do most everything else with it. I'm not just totally awkward with my left hand. But you get this principle, guys, and then at the end, when you get to the end, I use that same knot just to hold it, to make sure it doesn't go back out through the thread hole and burn the ends. But I'm gonna take a quick break from the video, and we're gonna go over there and burn the last couple of patches, and then I'll kind of fast forward back to me finishing this hat up. These all need to be taken to the air hose. I highly recommend using an air hose to clean them with. So I've got one more. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it right here. And that will conclude the burning part of this, but I just want to show you how my little hold downs work. And I know some of you are gonna ask if these things are in my Etsy store, and guys, I would love to tell you they are, but they are not. And reason being is because these things are really, really petite. They're really, really small. And I was afraid that if I put them in my Etsy store, people were gonna be like, those things broke. I make them out of scrap wood. I expect them to break. I break a lot of them. But they're really tiny burns because they have to be out of the way. And I was just a little worried that if I put them on there, people would be trying to blame me for the fact that they break real easy. All right, guys, number 5 is done. So I've got all 5 patches done. I've still got to clean them off with the air, but that is my method. A lot of you have asked about it. A lot of you were curious. A few of you actually saw my little leather holding pins laying around and were kind of wondering what those were. Now you know. That's what those are for. All right, guys, a little more over the shoulder action. Unfortunately, those patches burned pretty quick, so I didn't quite make it all the way to the end of this one. I am going to do just a 1-pass stitch on this one. Pretty sure that's what I did on the other ones. Because like I said, the glue that I put on here primarily will hold this thing, and you can't hardly rip it off, because I've had to try to rip a couple of them off before where I didn't like the placement and I was going to try to move them. And it is not an easy task to get these things off of here, and they will not come off in one piece because you'll rip some of the leather will rip out of the back of the patches. But coming around the corner, and you can see inside the back here, you get those little short runs of thread on the outside face, and you also have the same on the back, just kind of the reverse because it's opposite hole. But just keep going. Like I said, I went ahead and punched this thing out all the way around so that I could finish it without having to punch anymore. And got all my holes made in the hat so that I can get this knocked out. The ones right near this seam can be a little challenging because the material is so much thicker because it's doubled in the center. So you may have to bear down on those. Just a little waiver there. All right, so I've got it all the way around, and if you notice, there's a space between where I started and where I left off. So that's gonna be my last cut. Before I cut my thread, I like to go ahead and use my needle here to tie myself a little knot right here at the end and try to pull that knot all the way up close as I can get it to the hat. And once I get that knot tied and get it up there close to the hat, I'm just going to take and clip my material. And then I'm just going to take and get these two little ends, kind of stick them out. But I want them kind of twisted together and kind of touching. And I'm going to take and kind of singe those guys, burn them like that, and then I just kind of take. Now you may want to use something if you don't have, like if your fingers aren't as calloused as mine, you may want to grab something like a spoon or something like that to kind of press that in and melt those together. Because luckily the skin on my fingers is immune to hot and cold. So there you go, guys. All right, guys, y'all asked for it, and so you got it. There you go. There it is. So if you want to use my approach to making a hat, guys, that's it. You've got all my secrets. I'm not holding anything back. That's exactly what I do. That's exactly how I do them. This is exactly the materials that I use. So before any of these folks want to call me out and say that that's not a proper stitch, whatever, you know, whatever. Okay, you got me. It's not, but it works. And I haven't had one fall off yet. And trust me, the one that I wear when I'm running the sawmill or out here working around the yard has seen more than its share of abuse. If I had an old hat and an old patch, I would actually show you how hard these things are to get off without the thread. The thread just kind of helps give it that original handcrafted look. You can go through the line at, you know, Tractor Supply and places like that, and you can see hats with leather patches, and most of them are stuck on there with glue or something. And for some folks, maybe that's what they want. But, you know, around here I have found that people will pay a little extra money just to get the stitching. It looks better. To me, it's more rugged. It is definitely handcrafted, and it takes a lot of work. I don't make a whole lot of money off of them because, one, I'm not buying the hats really, really cheap. And two, I do put a lot of work into making them this way instead of just slapping some glue on there and calling it done. So if that's something you're interested in, guys, like I said, all of the materials used in this video, including the machine, I'll put links in the description. The leather that I use, the little kit that I bought, the hats, I'll drop it all down there so that if you want to go step by step and do this, you can. The only thing that's not currently available on the internet are my little hold down pins, and like I said, that's just because most folks have those. Those are something I just made for myself because I needed them and they work well, but as far as selling the file or anything like that, it's really not something that has crossed my mind because, like I said, people will complain that they break real easy, blah, 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 you know. So that's just kind of one of those tools that I think I'm going to keep for myself unless y'all can convince me otherwise. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. If you've been scared to try a hat, maybe this will help you get over that hump. I do know that apparently hat making with lasers is classified. A lot of guys will show you the hats that they make. A lot of guys will tell you, you know, that they make hats. You see a lot of them on Etsy, but nobody ever wants to share how they do it. And I don't know if they're trying to guard some trade secrets or what, but here at the Clack Shack, I'm just here to help you guys learn some of the stuff that took me a long time to learn, and I hope that making these videos does that. So if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, a like, whatever you got. If you don't like it, you can give me a thumbs down. But until next time, guys, as always, be safe and have a good day.